The next presentation is modeling banks' back office processes. It will be presented by Luigi Geppert from Fay Dynamics, Italy.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and many thanks to the AnyLogic organization for inviting me here today. Strictly speaking, I've also a brand of an academic brand. I act also as a professor, an adjunct professor of strategy and dynamic systems. But today, my real objective is to address the cap of the consultant and give you, anyway, a practical example of how administrative processes can be faced and tackled by using simulation. And I will use it as an example the case of Bank of Italy, which is the central bank of Italy. And I will try to introduce both the general background of the problem and also some figures, numerical figures, and some simulation as well. Just some seconds to introduce my company. My company is a distributor of AnyLogic in Italy. We are consultants, so we are not, technologists. We don't make software anyway. We just use the simulation as a valid support in our consulting activity. As far as consultancy activity is concerned, we are, generalist consultant. We face general consulting. We are mainly involved in planning projects, especially as a resource, right sizing, resource dimension is concerned. And this is applied, our consulting is mainly address supply chain and also administrative processes, business process and organization in general. So among the partners, I list also, AnyLogic, that is the technological partner that we use for, simulation, as a simulation tool. So I go through the general case. Unfortunately, along with me today, there should have been also Mr. Dario Russo, who's the head of innovation at Banca d'Italia, but he's not here, unfortunately. And so I'll try to make the background of the problem in order to make easier to understand the simulation then. So one of the most interesting and most buzzed words since the financial crisis of 2008 in the banking system could be summarized in three aspects. First of all is increase of the governance, which means to rule organization and processes in a better way than respect before 2008. Second, the other two words relates to increase of efficiency or better productivity of the whole system, and also effectiveness, which means increasing the service level agreement that the bank have with their customers. We are convinced that simulation is one of the best way to go through, the exploitation and the identification of different scenarios that a bank, in terms of both organization and processes, can apply in order to accompany their strategical plans also with the support of a very practical tool. Usually one of the methodologically speaking, the way that we usually we consider at the customer side is to take into account of two separate, well-defined moments in the methodological proposal. The first moment is to using simulation to depict, to photograph the current situation that we call as is, using a bit old language that we use, I mean, to represent, to depict, to catch, I mean, the current process, and by catching the current process, to calibrate the process on the real evidence in terms of numbers, figures, times that the model should reproduce. This is a good, I mean, starting point, because by checking the quality of the reproduced as is, several, I mean, consideration can be further done. First of all, you can identify some features that before were only, I mean, felt, but not exactly demonstrated through a numerical approach. Second is a right way that appropriately combine with some benchmark activity with other player of the same industry, of the same sector in the bank, in this case, can be used together to produce new scenarios. I mean, 2B scenarios addressed to improve, I mean, the process, the organization, and so on. So the main processing, the main goal of the process modeling that we have faced in this case was to, that I write in 3 sentences here, identifying organizational errors through diagrammatic presentation, model and refine the business processes and choice, and making possible the execution of what-if scenarios. The process that we take into account was a typical, I mean, back office process, which is called payments. Payments is a general terms, which means any credit transfer process related to both, I mean, other final customers, which are internal institution of the bank, external institution of the bank, or even other banks, other central banks. The typical process, it's a normal process based on a typical flows of activities, that we can read very quickly in this way. It's a typical process flow. Registration of the operation, checking the confirmation, request for settlement, for payment, handling of abnormal situation, reconciliation of all account with movement, and registration of the operation. So a typical flow made of different activities. For each of these activities, there is an appropriate work time. There is the lag time and the waiting time between one activity and the other activity. So imagine a typical process flow, I mean, as the administrative, as we can meet in different administrative processes. This is the pictures in terms of, I mean, different steps. So I jump to the model before going on with the presentation. This is the general, I mean, the general frame that the user through which the user can act with the simulation tool. We have in the graph the representation of a typical day in minutes, from minutes 450 to minutes 1170, which means from 7:30 to a.m. to 7:30 p.m. Expressed in terms of minutes. And we have, we can run the ASIs in case of a medium volume activities, a medium number of payments to be done, which every day are around 60, 57 in this case. And the other lever that the user can apply are, as you can see, the number of persons involved in the different stages of the process. So to make the first run, so we show that and we calibrate, this graphical representation. On the y-axis, you find the number of persons, the requirements of persons of different type of employees in time. And we have that, these general figures, that the process generally ends at 12:18. It takes 738 minutes and needs 3.2 full-time equivalent, which are, person divided the number of minutes, the working day, for the contract they have needs, which are 8 hours minus 30 minutes for the lunch break, you know. So, and this is the total lead times, the total lead time of each single payment. The time taken by, each payment to cross through all the process, you know. Well, what happened in case where, I just anticipated to be, instead of using 2 units, 2 organizational units, I use just 1 unit. So this is the as-is. I can use the simulator to represent what happened if instead of 2 separate units, I just use 1 organizational unit. Well, no major difference we get. In case of normal activities, you see that we reach by and large the same results. There are some seconds difference, but they are not to be taken into account. What happened instead if I go back, to the as-is situation? Instead of having 2 assistants in the division 1, in the unit 1, I just have 1 assistant. So I reduce the number of persons for one of the activities. This simulates not only a productivity, an increase of productivity exercise, but just this also simulates the absence of the person, the absence for several reasons, because engaged in other more priority process and so on, or for sickness or for holidays or other reason. And we see that in this case, the entire payments, the whole payments of the day, instead of be finished by 12 as before, they are finished at 2 o'clock, 14:04, so 4 minutes past 2. And what about, in this case, if I use just 1 unit? Well, I merge the unit and I get the results. And you see that in this case, I get a significant result, very meaningful results, because by and large, I get the same times that I got before. 12:20, 12:15, and so on. Which means that, in case of absence of the resources, it's an interesting conclusion. the 2B model is more competitive, more productive than the as-is model. And let me show you again the last situation when I have a very high volume, an exceptional volume of payment to be done, to be carried out in one day. And I'm going to compare both the as-is situation and the 2B situation. I use the same number. I don't reduce the number of persons. I go back to the as-is situation where I have 9 persons. This is the situation in the case of the as-is, and this is the situation in the case of 2B. In any case, I have the possibility to save 20 minutes or something like that, which is an important, that could be an important outcome and save if I can reach it. Just going back to the presentation and give me the conclusion. The example that you have seen was realized through AnyLogic, and was realized also in 2 ways. This is a further exercise that we have done on behalf of the customer, because we compare the discrete event approach and the discrete event approach, which is the usual approach that in this case has to be done. I remember that I start my career, I start my experience with simulation in the end of the 80s by using tools like Witness, by discrete event based, or tool based on system dynamics approach like Dynamo, and then I think PowerSim and so on. And this is the typical approach. Process flow is the typical process modeling, or process flow is the typical approach that could be very well faced through with discrete event modeling. But we want to try also the same experience, and we realized also using an agent-based approach, where instead of representing the flow, we use the state of the agent use. In the example, the agent use are units, payments, and people as well. So we mix together different classes of agents. And at the end, we dare say that it has been a nice experience, because we compare both the simulation, and we found in this case that the agents-based approach, even though the process was very structured and very easy to be demonstrated in terms of rule, in terms of disruption. Disruption are only based on statistical deviations and so on. So typical environment of discrete event approach. We saw that the agent-based was quicker, was very shorter implementation. We had a shorter implementation time. And also was easier to face situation like the shift change, where activity began a little bit before the shift change. So in the reality, the person tends to stay at the office at his desk behind, beyond, the time of the time shift. This is more. We use the same approach in discrete event. We face the same thing in discrete event and agent-based, and we see that the agent-based gave us more satisfaction. So, just a conclusion. So, modeling and simulation techniques make it possible in the case of the bank, to assess the existing situation quantitatively in order to demonstrate, the typical, the numerical quantities and aspects of the disease. Elicit or solicit new ideas for modification and change. The idea of grouping, of merging, the two organizational units was suggested also by the behavior of the disease model. Verify and quantify different hypotheses figured out on paper. Explore a new possibility by looking at what happens beyond yonder. In this case, of course, you saw the increase of productivity, and even in the case of one person lost, a possible, reduction of people involved in the process. And showing and understanding counterintuitive situation, demonstrate the validity of assumption quantitatively. This is very important to the middle manager to demonstrate at upper level, the need of an intervention, the need of a budget, and so on, before proceeding to make his action and his plan be developed in practice. Okay, thank you for your kind presentation.
The questions from the audience?
In your model, you are treating employees from the banking offices. I would just like to know, do you also have modeled the qualifications? So if one person from the first department is not available, is this the person from the second department which does the work, does he have the same speed, or is it even possible that he conducts this work?
Yeah, good question. Well, I simplified, of course, my presentation. At the moment, in the disease situation, there are persons grouped in different roles with different skills. And of course, the skills put in practice by the employees in the Division 1 are different than the ones put in practice by Division 2, by Unit 2, of course. But in the simulation of the TB, where a merge could require and will require, an interchangeability among different roles, should be accompanied by an appropriate educational program first, in order to make a person able to, make the practical activities, and also a contractual, activity with the syndicate, with the, in order to have define different, mention different jobs for those people.
Okay, thank you.
No more questions?
In fact, in agent-based model, the difficulty is to establish the rules, the behavior rules. So how you did in your applications? How you establish the rules?
You mean the works that we have done to get and to collect? Yes, we have a methodology. We start from a work sampling, which means, collecting, which means that we collect we start by collecting all the required information for the key people working on the process, managers and both managers and users as well. And we have a methodology based on the collection of several figures, for instance, working time, lag time, number of disruption that can happen priori. We didn't talk about disruption, for instance, because I didn't have time, but the model also included one lever that could create priorities in the process flow, which are disruption. This is the most important part of the job, because this is a consultant, activity, typical consultancy activity. But the simulator is very useful because you can use these numbers, you can use these collected figures, and the idea that you have to suggest to the customer to be combined, and through the simulation to show to the customer the numerical outcome that he can reach.
More questions? Okay, thank you for presentation.
Thank you very much.